Hey guys, it's Ellie. Welcome back to Bite-Sized Book of Mormon. I'm glad to have you with me. So if you've never been here before, this is just a podcast where we read through one chapter of the Book of Mormon each episode, and I give a little bit of context, a little bit of insight, a little bit of good times, so stick around. So last chapter was a lot more of the prophetic language that we saw in the chapter before that. Essentially, the point of the chapter was saying, hey, by the way, here's a sign that your remnant can look back on and understand, oh yes, the gathering of Israel has already begun. The work of fulfilling God's covenant to the house of Israel has already begun, i.e., the gathering of Israel, like I said. And the sign that he pointed to, that the remnant of their people could look back on and understand, was the coming forth of the Book of Mormon. Now, of course, it wasn't in so specific words, but it was clear that it was the coming forth of the Book of Mormon in the Americas. And that is a sign to us today, too, that the gathering of Israel has begun. And then it talks about how if the Gentiles, the ones that bring forth the Book of Mormon, as it describes, are wicked, then God will do a bunch of bad things. But if they're righteous, then God will add them to the house of Israel, that they'll be able to assist the house of Israel in the great work of gathering in the latter days, that, God will come down among them, that they'll create the new Jerusalem, all this good stuff happening. So, yeah, it's full of prophecy. So if you haven't listened to that already, go back and listen to it if you want to learn more about how the Book of Mormon is involved in all this work of gathering Israel, because it is connected to that, which is really, really cool. So yeah, I think without further ado, let's continue these prophetic words from Jesus Christ as we read 3 Nephi chapter 22. And then shall that which is written come to pass. Sing, O barren, thou that didst not bear. Break forth into singing and cry aloud, thou that didst not travail with child. For more are the children of the desolate than the children of the married wife, saith the Lord. Enlarge the place of thy tent, and let them stretch forth the curtains of thy habitations. Spare not, lengthen thy cords, and strengthen thy stakes. For thou shalt break forth on the right hand and on the left, and thy seed shall inherit the Gentiles, and make the desolate cities to be inhabited. Fear not, for thou shalt not be ashamed, neither be thou confounded, for thou shalt not be put to shame, for thou shalt forget the shame of thy youth, and shalt not remember the reproach of thy youth, and shalt not remember the reproach of thy widowhood any more. For thy Maker, thy husband, the Lord of hosts is his name, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the God of the whole earth, shall be called. For the Lord hath called thee as a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit, and a wife of youth, when thou wast refused, saith thy God. For a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies shall I gather thee. In a little wrath I hid my face from thee for a moment, but with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, saith the Lord thy Redeemer. So this is interesting. This is more words from Isaiah. I think this is directly lifted from Isaiah. The chapter summary says, compare Isaiah 54. So Jesus Christ is quoting the words of Isaiah, which, what does that say about the words of Isaiah? That we should read them? Yes, that's what it says. But essentially, what is being explained here is that this prophecy by Isaiah is kind of treating the reader, treating whoever is reading this, which in this case is us, as a widow, essentially. As verse 6 says, a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit, and a wife of youth. So being a widow sucks, and being forsaken, especially as a woman, sucks. Like, that is just a terrible place to be. And so I think he's treating the audience, whether that's the house of Israel or us as readers today, as basically someone who's really struggling and who has been abandoned, essentially, by everyone. In this case, God. He explains in verse 7, for a small moment have I forsaken thee, but with great mercies will I gather thee. So he's saying, yes, there was a time where Israel was not gathered, but now that the house of Israel or the reader or whoever is an aggrieved widow who's struggling, then I will with great mercy gather you. So he also explains more in verse 8, in a little wrath I hid my face, but with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, saith the Lord thy Redeemer. So he's like, yes, there was a time where I was not there. There was a time where you were wicked and I could not reach you. But in everlasting kindness, he says, will I have mercy on thee. And so again, he's treating, whether it's the house of Israel or the reader or whoever, Isaiah is very dual-natured, or even triple-natured sometimes. God is gathering us, and God is gathering the house of Israel. And he's kind of saving them from being this aggrieved widow who has been abandoned by her husband. Because it's explained multiple times in Isaiah that Jesus Christ can be understood kind of as the church's husband. Like, he is the bridegroom, right? I mean, not literally, of course, but it's a very common way of phrasing it that the church is the wife of Christ. And so what he's saying is, I will return, essentially. Like, you are currently a widow, like, I left you for some time. Again, in a little wrath I hid my face, as he says in verse 8. But with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee. So essentially he's saying, yes, there was a time where I was gone, but I'm coming back and I'm fulfilling my covenant. Like, I still have this covenant obligation to you, O house of Israel, and I'm going to fulfill it. And now it is time to fulfill. And there was a time where it wasn't yet the time. Where there was a time where there was kind of an in-between space between being spread and being gathered. And now we are past that in-between space. And now, again, since the coming of the Book of Mormon, as was explained last chapter, the gathering has begun. And he says in verse 2, enlarge the place of thy tent, and let them stretch forth the curtains of thy habitation. Spare not, lengthen thy cords, and strengthen thy stakes. So, I'm sure you've heard the term big tent church before, which is essentially the idea that we welcome everyone. And that is what this verse is talking about, that everyone is welcome, that we should enlarge the place of thy tent. So we are being told specifically, hey, extend your stakes, gather people in, welcome people, and enlarge the place of thy tent. And so that's what we should work to do. That's part of the work of Gathering of Israel, is enlarging who we welcome in. And anyone can come to a church service, anyone can read the Book of Mormon, anyone can pray to God, and we should allow them to. And this is echoing a principle that Jesus Christ has already kind of nailed into the skulls of these Nephites, which he explains a few chapters before in 3 Nephi 18, which he explains specifically in verse 22, and behold, ye shall meet together oft, and ye shall not forbid any man from coming unto you when ye shall meet together, but suffer them that they may come unto you, and forbid them not. So Jesus Christ is a big tent church person, and so should we be. Everyone is welcome to our services. Anyone can approach Jesus Christ, or approach God through Jesus Christ, rather, and anyone can read the Book of Mormon. Anyone can read the scriptures, and anyone can find God in them. And that's what we should be allowing and helping people to do, whoever they are, wherever they come from, and whatever they have previously believed. And so again, the Gathering of Israel includes not only helping people make covenants, but just helping people come to church. Because that's the first step. You gotta get their foot in the door, right? And so if we act all exclusive and aloof and like we're in this big special club of like, hey, I have a temple recommended, but you don't, so I'm more saved than you are, that's stupid. Like, no, everyone is welcome to our church. We are not part of this exclusive club that's separate and aloof and better than everyone else. We welcome everyone. We welcome everyone who wants to come. Whatever their intentions, whatever their beliefs, whatever their backgrounds, they can come and hear the words of Jesus Christ and hear the words of the restored gospel. For this, the waters of Noah unto me, for as I have sworn that the waters of Noah should no more go over the earth, so have I sworn that I would not be wroth with thee. For the mountains shall depart, and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, saith the Lord that hath mercy on thee. O thou afflicted, tossed with tempest, and not comforted, behold, I will lay thy stones with fair colours, and lay thy foundations with sapphires. And I will make thy windows of agates, and thy gates of carbuncles, and all thy borders of pleasant stones. And all thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children. In righteousness shalt thou be established, thou shalt be far from oppression, for thou shalt not fear, and from terror, for it shall not come near thee. Behold, they shall surely gather together against thee, not by me. Whosoever shall gather together against thee shall fall for thy sake. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals and the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall revile against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord. Oof, more words of Isaiah. I love Isaiah because Jesus Christ loves Isaiah, and I'm trying to be like Christ. So even though things can be hard to parse sometimes, they're important, and they're dual, and even triple prophecies sometimes that apply to multiple peoples at multiple times in multiple contexts. That's what makes Isaiah so hard partially, is because not only do we not understand the context that it was originally written in, but we also need to understand that there are so many ways that we can understand these words, and Christ is even providing a different interpretation of these words than they were originally written by Isaiah. Isaiah was talking specifically to the house of Israel, but Christ seems to be expanding that interpretation and providing more light and clarity on the words of Scripture, which is what prophets do in the latter days. And so it's cool to see Christ performing the work of a prophet. Again, he is the Son of God, but he also functions as a prophet. So it's cool to see him kind of shedding some light on that. So he ends the chapter by saying, this is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. So everything before that is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. So it applies to servants of the Lord. Again, whether that's specifically called prophets and apostles, or if you see servants of the Lord just as like disciples and followers of the Lord, either way, I feel like both interpretations are equally valid. But what he says about these servants of the Lord is in verse 17, no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. And he also says in verse 15, whosoever shall gather together against thee shall fall for my sake. And verse 13, all thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children. And in verse 11 and 12, it's very interesting. He says, I will lay thy stones with fair colors, and lay thy foundations with sapphires. And I will make thy windows of agates, and thy gates of carbuncle, and all thy borders of pleasant stones. So he's talking about laying our stones with fair colors, and our foundations with sapphires, and so on. So he might be talking about the mansions that he is building for us in heaven, because he mentions in some of the Gospels that there are mansions for us in heaven, many mansions. And this seems to be implying, well, hey, if you're a servant of the Lord, your mansion will be created with these beautiful stones, that the foundations will be laid with sapphire, and the windows will be of agate, and so forth. That sounds beautiful. And it sounds like if we build our life on the foundation, on the rock of revelation and the gospel and the words of Christ, then that will kind of be mirrored in the afterlife. How the foundations of our, whether spiritually, figurative, or literal mansions in heaven will also be built on beautiful and strong foundations, just like we were in life. You know, I feel like that's a beautiful parallel. And again, this is all talking about the heritage of the servants of the Lord, as he ends the chapter with. So this is applying to servants of the Lord. So again, I think, personally, that this applies to all followers of the Lord and disciples of the Lord. And so this isn't specifically just to prophets, or just to apostles, or just to people with stake callings, or whatever. I think this is to all disciples. And so if we follow, if we build our personal foundation on the rock of revelation and the rock of the word of God, then I will lay thy stones with fair colors, and lay thy foundations with sapphires, and I will make thy windows of agates and thy gates of carbuncle. So our mansions in heaven sound pretty sick. If they're, spiritually figurative or literal, I don't really care. But the point is, what we do in this life will reflect in the life to come. If we build our foundations strong here, then how we live our life will kind of inform what comes later. So anyways, this is a very interesting chapter that basically the entire time quotes Isaiah, but I think there are a couple of insertions from Jesus Christ here, which is interesting because, again, like I said, he's providing an interpretation. He's providing a little bit of context, not only in what he adds to this chapter, but also just in kind of the context that he's couching it in. He's talking about the Nephites. He's talking about how the gathering of Israel applies to them in the Americas. Remember last chapter he was talking about how the Book of Mormon, specifically the coming of the Book of Mormon, is a sign that the gathering of Israel is starting for these people in the Americas. And so, again, he's talking to the Nephites, and he's talking about how these words of Isaiah apply to them, and kind of by extension apply to us. Because, like I said, the words of Isaiah apply to the house of Israel, as Christ is applying them to the Nephites as well, and, like I said, they can probably be applied to us. So there's so many dimensions of the words of Isaiah, and I think they're very loose in that way. So yes, they can be difficult to understand, but at the same time, they can be so widely applied. And I think that might be partially why Christ likes them so much, and why he quotes them so much. Not only because they're genuinely prophetic, and they point towards future events that have happened or will happen, but also, we can just kind of apply it. Because it teaches broad principles about how Christ and God deal with their people. And whoever those people are, the principles are the same, because he deals with his people the same. And he's the same God. So, yeah, I think when you're going through Isaiah, whether it's these chapters, or whether it's the second Nephi chapters, or whether it's the actual book of Isaiah, keep that in mind. That even though, yes, it was written directly to the house of Israel, and applies directly to them in many ways, and, touches on specific points of their history and specific peoples that they're worried about, I would say it doesn't hurt, and it's not incorrect to try and apply it to yourself, or to try and apply it to different eras of history. The words of Isaiah are looser than you think, as Christ is showing us here. He's lighting them in a different context than we're used to, but it's equally correct, because, obviously it's correct, it's coming from the mouth of Jesus Christ. But anyways, I think that's a very apt thing to remember when it comes to reading Isaiah, because it's famously difficult to understand, but it's also famously loved by God. Like, Jesus Christ in the next chapter specifically says, hey, the words of Isaiah are awesome, go read them. So, yes, go read Isaiah, as Christ said, as he will say, rather, in the next chapter. But yeah, this is a pretty cool chapter. So yeah, that is the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed. This is definitely an interesting one, because again, Christ is talking about Isaiah, which can be difficult, but also very flexible to apply, like I said, so very interesting. I hope you enjoyed just like I did. So yeah, there's just one link down in the show notes. Through it, you can read the Book of Mormon for free. You can find my Instagram and my YouTube. You can find my Substack to get some Book of Mormon insights into your inbox every once in a while. And also, you can donate to me, because I do this as a passion project. I do this just for fun. So yeah, anything you donate is very much appreciated. But yeah, that is all I've got for you today. I'll talk to you later. Bye!